The galaxy was at war, stars burned bright, but between them fleets clashed like storms of fire and metal, kingdoms rose, empires fell, and millions of lives were caught in battles that stretched across the void. Among the powers that fought, few were greater than the Seraph Dominion, ruled by their queen, Seraphira. Her people were tall, proud, and carried a grace that made others fear them. Their ships were vast, their armies strong, and their rule strict. For centuries they had stood above many other species, declaring themselves guardians of the galaxy's balance. But even the strongest empire could bleed. On the edge of the Orion Rift, one battle had gone terribly wrong. The Queen's personal flagship, the Celestial Crown, drifted in silence after the fight. Its hull was torn, energy flickered in broken corridors, and many of her soldiers lay dead or wounded. The enemy had struck with cunning ambushes, leaving her fleet scattered. Though Seraphira survived, her ship was crippled, and she was stranded in a dark system with only fragments of her forces. Inside the throne chamber of the ship, Seraphira sat tall, her silver armor cracked and her crown dim with scratches of war. She was a queen, yet in that moment she was also a survivor surrounded by sparks of failing machines. Her golden eyes burned with anger at the humiliation of defeat. "Report," she commanded. A guard knelt before her, head bowed. "My queen, the reactors are failing. Life support will last only 3 cycles. Engines are dead." "We are trapped." Seraphira clenched her fist. "And the enemy?" "No sign, my queen. They believe us destroyed." That gave her little comfort. A queen of the Dominion should not be hiding in shadows, waiting for her ship to die. She should be leading her armies, not stranded in the void. And then fate intervened. Far across the wreckage, another vessel appeared. It was not a grand warship nor a craft of her empire. It was small, patched together, built for work, not battle. Its hull carried markings unknown to her soldiers, a mix of sharp lines and faded colors. Her people looked at it with suspicion, for they had never seen such a design. The ship docked with the Celestial Crown. A single figure stepped through the airlock. He was not tall like her warriors. His skin was pale compared to theirs, his frame lean, his eyes sharp and filled with strange courage. He wore no armor of power, only a simple suit lined with tools. He moved with caution, yet without fear, even as Seraphira's guards aimed weapons at his chest. "Identify yourself." One soldier barked. The stranger raised his hands. His voice was steady. "My name is Daniel. I'm human. I picked up your distress signal." The guards stiffened. The word meant little to them, for humans were a minor species, barely spoken of in the halls of the Dominion. But to Seraphira, the courage in his eyes was unusual. She stepped forward, her voice commanding. "You dare set foot on the ship of a queen? You stand before Seraphira of the Seraph Dominion. Give me one reason I should not order your death." Daniel looked at her directly, unshaken by the sight of an alien queen towering over him. "Because if you kill me, your ship will die with you. I can fix what your people cannot." The chamber went silent. Her guards snarled at the insult. "This human is arrogant, my queen. He should be—" "Silence," Seraphira ordered, her golden eyes fixed on Daniel. "You claim you can repair my ship?" "You alone?" Daniel nodded. "I'm an engineer. Your reactor is failing, your power lines are unstable, and your air systems are leaking. I can hear it. I can smell it. You may be warriors, but you don't understand machines the way I do." Her pride bristled at his words, but deep down she knew he might be right. Her soldiers were trained for war, not for fixing a dying ship. Without power, even the mightiest queen would be reduced to a corpse floating in the void. "You expect me to trust you?" she asked coldly. Daniel shrugged. "No, but you don't have a choice." Against all instincts, she allowed him to work. Guards followed him through the ship, weapons always close, ready to strike him down at the first sign of betrayal. Daniel did not flinch. He crawled into burning tunnels, patched torn circuits with his bare hands, and spoke to the machines as though they were old friends. Sparks burned his skin, yet he did not stop. Hours passed, and slowly, lights that had been dead began to glow again. Systems that had fallen silent hummed with power. Seraphira watched from a distance, her pride fighting with her reason. This fragile human moved with a kind of fearlessness that was not born from arrogance but from determination. He did not fight with a blade or command with a crown, but his hand saved lives all the same. Finally, Daniel stepped back from the main console, sweat dripping from his forehead. "Your life support is stable. The reactor won't collapse, but the engines will need time. You'll live, for now, one of her soldiers spat. You speak boldly for a weak creature. Daniel turned, his eyes sharp. Weak? I walked onto your ship when everyone else would have run. I kept you breathing when your own people couldn't. If that's weakness, then maybe you should pray for more of it. The soldier bristled, ready to strike, but Seraphira raised her hand. Her golden eyes studied Daniel, searching for the truth behind his words. For the first time in many cycles, she felt something strange. Respect. You are reckless, she said. Foolish and yet useful, Daniel smirked tiredly. I'll take that as a compliment. In the days that followed, he remained on the ship. He repaired broken lines, restored communication relays, and even taught some of her soldiers basic methods they had never considered. Though many distrusted him, his actions could not be denied. And slowly, Seraphira found herself watching him more closely. When others would have begged for mercy before a queen, he stood calm. When danger pressed close, he did not flinch. He was unlike any creature she had known, fragile in body, yet unyielding in spirit. On the 5th cycle, as stars drifted outside the viewport, she approached him. Human, she said, her voice softer than before. Why did you come here? Why risk your life for strangers not of your kind? Daniel paused, wiping grease from his hands. He looked at her, and for the first time there was no barrier between them, just two beings in the vast emptiness of space. Because life is worth saving. Doesn't matter whose it is. Seraphira held his gaze, and for the first time in her long reign, the queen felt the weight of her crown lighten. The meeting of two worlds had begun. The ship was no longer dying. Lights returned to the vast halls. Air flowed more evenly, and the cold silence of a dying vessel was replaced by the hum of steady machines. The queen's soldiers no longer whispered of suffocation in the dark. Instead, they whispered about the human who had saved them. Daniel walked the corridors with his toolkit strapped to his side. Everywhere he went, eyes followed him. Some were filled with suspicion, others with reluctant respect. He was the outsider who had dared step onto the queen's ship, the stranger who had placed his hands on their sacred machines without fear. Yet he worked as if he belonged. In the throne chamber, Queen Seraphira listened to reports. Her officers described the repaired systems, the restored energy, and the strange methods the human had used. She said little, only nodded, but her mind was restless. For centuries, her people had ruled with strength. They believed power came from force, from unyielding might. Yet this small creature, this Daniel, had shown another kind of power: knowledge, persistence, courage. It unsettled her, and yet it also drew her curiosity. When the reports ended, she gave a simple command: "Bring the human before me." Moments later, Daniel entered the chamber. He looked tired, with grease smudges across his face, but his eyes were bright. He bowed slightly, more out of politeness than submission. "You called for me?" he asked. Seraphira leaned forward on her throne, golden eyes studying him. "My soldiers speak of you. They say you do what even they cannot. You fix what they cannot understand. Tell me, human, why do you risk so much for a people who are not your own?" Daniel hesitated only a moment. "Because ships are the same no matter who builds them. Machines want to live just like people, and because no one deserves to die if they can be saved." His words were simple, but they carried weight. The guards shifted uneasily, unaccustomed to such bold honesty in the queen's presence. Seraphira considered him carefully. His kind were unknown in the grand stage of the galaxy, yet here he stood unafraid to speak his truth. "You speak as though all life matters to you," she said slowly. "Even those who might call you enemy." Daniel nodded. "Yeah, life's hard enough without us finding more reasons to kill each other." For a long moment the queen said nothing. Then, with a voice softer than before, she said, "You are strange human." Daniel smiled faintly. "I get that a lot." The days passed. Daniel's work did not stop. He spent long hours repairing power grids, reinforcing engines, and mapping damage across the great ship. But slowly, something else grew alongside his work. Moments of quiet connection between him and the queen. It began with small conversations. She would come to observe his work, asking questions about his methods. He would answer with patience, explaining the tools he carried, the logic of his repairs. Her people found his words confusing, but she listened closely. "Your species fights with knowledge," she remarked one day, watching him seal a cracked conduit. Daniel chuckled. "Not always. We fight plenty, but when we can, we build, we fix, we survive. Her golden eyes lingered on him. Survival is power. Perhaps your people are not as weak as the galaxy believes? Daniel shrugged. Yeah. The calm of the repaired ship was brief. The galaxy never rested, and neither did the enemies who had sought to destroy the Seraph Dominion. Scouts reported an approaching fleet, larger, faster, and more ruthless than the last. The Queen's officers whispered of hopeless odds, yet Seraphira did not flinch. Beside her, Daniel studied the star maps and energy readings. His mind worked fast, calculating maneuvers and weak points in the enemy formation. "We don't have much time," he said, his tone calm but urgent. "They're coming in at vectors I haven't seen used before. If we don't move fast, your ship will be destroyed before we can even lift off." Her golden eyes narrowed. "And you propose what?" "Simple," Daniel said. "We fight smart. Not with power, but with strategy. Your ship can outmaneuver them if we use the engines and sequences no one expects. I can reroute energy to shields and weapons in ways your officers won't think of." The Queen regarded him. Humans were small, weak by her standards, yet this human, had saved her ship once. Perhaps he could do it again. "Do it," she commanded. The preparations began. Her soldiers moved quickly under Daniel's guidance, rerouting power lines, recalibrating weapons, and running simulations he provided. Despite their doubts, they followed him. Slowly, they began to see that his plans made sense. Daniel worked beside them, pointing, adjusting, explaining. He was no commander, but the soldiers respected him because he delivered results. And the Queen? She watched him with a mix of admiration and concern. "You trust him too much," one officer whispered. Seraphira's gaze did not waver from Daniel. "Trust is earned," she said. "He saved my life. He has earned my trust." As the enemy fleet approached, the void outside grew bright with distant lasers and energy pulses. The first ships of the attackers emerged from warp trails, sleek and deadly. They expected to find an easy target, a crippled flagship left defenseless. They were wrong. Daniel's strategy unfolded like a living map. Energy flowed to shields just before enemy weapons hit. Engines surged at unexpected moments, sending the flagship into sudden movements that threw enemy targeting off. Defensive drones deployed where they could intercept missiles before impact. The attackers blinked in disbelief. How could this ship, clearly damaged, fight so cleverly? Seraphira felt a surge of pride and tension. She had never seen humans fight this way. Their strength did not lie in raw power, but in their minds. This one human was reshaping the battle in ways no alien commander would have thought of. The battle was fierce. Explosions lit the corridors and alarms rang through the ship. Daniel moved with precision, directing soldiers, repairing systems mid-combat and staying calm even when blasts shook the ship. His arm, still healing from previous injuries, bore the strain, but he refused to stop. At one point, a plasma cannon from an enemy vessel struck the hull near the reactor. Sparks flew and smoke filled the passage. Daniel crawled through the debris, cutting power lines and reconnecting circuits while flames licked nearby walls. Guards shouted, but he ignored them, his hands steady. Finally, the cannon stopped firing. The ship's energy stabilized and shields rose stronger than before. Seraphira watched from the bridge. "Impressive," she said aloud, though only Daniel could hear. He looked up at her, wiping soot from his face. "Nothing impressive about surviving," he replied. "It's all about keeping moving." The battle continued for hours. Enemy ships surrounded them, firing relentlessly. Many of her soldiers began to doubt they could survive, but Daniel's calm presence steadied them. He walked among them, offering instructions and encouragement. "Don't panic. Follow the plan. Trust the ship," and slowly the tide turned. Using Daniel's strategy, they outmaneuvered larger ships, avoiding direct hits while striking weak points. Some attackers retreated, confused and beaten by tactics they had never faced. Seraphira realized something extraordinary. This human, small and unarmored, had changed the way her people fought. He was not a warrior in their traditional sense, but his mind was sharper than many of her finest commanders. In a quiet moment, Seraphira approached Daniel on the bridge. The battle raged outside, but here, they were alone for a breath. "You are remarkable," she said, her golden eyes reflecting the flashes of combat. Daniel shook his head. "I'm just doing my job. You want to survive. You use whatever works." She studied him, noticing the exhaustion, the determination, and something else. Something that went beyond courage. You risk your life, not because you must, but because you choose to. That is something few understand. Daniel glanced at her. I chose to save your ship, and you. Simple as that. Her heart beat faster. She had faced countless battles, countless deaths, yet this human made her feel something new. Respect, admiration, perhaps even something deeper. The final phase of the battle arrived. A massive cruiser, larger than anything they had faced, emerged from a warp corridor, leading the remaining attackers. Its weapons glowed like stars about to explode. Daniel studied the ship's pattern. It's fast, but it has blind spots. If we bait it closer, we can use the ship's energy and our weapons to trap it in a chain of explosions. It's risky, but it's the only way. Seraphira's guards hesitated, unsure if the plan would succeed. It could destroy us. One officer shouted. She turned to Daniel. Do you believe it will work? He nodded, steady. Yes, if we act together, we can win. But we have to trust each other. The Queen made a choice. She stood taller, her voice commanding. All units follow my orders and this human's plan. We fight as one or we die as one. Now move. The maneuver began. The celestial crown weaved between enemy fire, engines surging at precise intervals. Daniel directed energy to shields just as cannons fired. Explosions erupted around them, but the flagship moved like a ghost, untouchable. Finally, the massive cruiser advanced too close. Daniel's trap triggered. Energy pulses from their ship caused the cruiser's engines to overload, and it exploded in a massive fireball. The remaining attackers, seeing their leader destroyed, retreated in panic. Silence fell over the bridge. The ship trembled from minor impacts, but it had survived. Seraphira turned to Daniel, her expression unreadable. Then she allowed herself a rare smile. You saved us all. Daniel, tired and bruised, gave a small shrug. We did it together. The victory was more than survival, it was a revelation. Seraphira realized that strength was not only in power or soldiers, but in courage, intelligence, and the willingness to stand together. Daniel, a human, had taught her that lesson. Her people began to see him differently too. The Queen had chosen to trust him, and their lives had been spared. They began to whisper not just of his skills, but of his courage. And in the quiet moments after the battle, as the crew tended to repairs and the stars outside burned calm and bright, Seraphira found herself standing next to Daniel once more. You are unlike anyone I have ever met, she said quietly. He looked at her, smiling faintly. I could say the same about you, Your Majesty. For the first time, she did not feel the weight of her crown alone. She felt an ally, a partner, not just a human, but someone who had proven that even the smallest, weakest-seeming being could change the fate of empires. And though neither spoke it yet, both understood a new truth. Together they could face anything. The galaxy, with all its chaos and war, was no longer something they faced alone. The bond between the Queen and the human had grown beyond duty. It was a bond of trust, respect, and something neither of them could yet name. And as the ship sailed toward safer systems, Seraphira knew that the journey ahead, no matter how dangerous, would not be faced by one alone. Two worlds had met, two hearts had connected, and the galaxy would soon feel the consequences of their alliance. After the battle, the celestial crown floated through calmer space, but calm did not mean safe. Pockets of enemy scouts still prowled nearby, and Seraphira's empire was still recovering from the losses. She walked through her ship inspecting repairs, yet her mind wandered to the human engineer who had changed the course of her battle. Daniel moved among the crew, overseeing minor repairs, offering advice, and occasionally exchanging a quiet word with Seraphira. He had earned the trust of her soldiers, and even the most skeptical officers nodded when he spoke. Yet there was a weight in his eyes she could not read, a mixture of weariness, hope, and something unspoken. Seraphira had always been careful. Her life was bound to duty, to her crown, and to the traditions of the Seraph Dominion. Feelings were distractions, vulnerabilities that her enemies could exploit, and yet she found herself seeking Daniel's presence more often. His presence calmed the ship in ways her strongest officers could not. One day she found him working alone in a quiet maintenance bay, adjusting a plasma conduit. Sparks flickered, reflecting in his tired but determined eyes. You work without rest, she observed, stepping closer. Daniel looked up and gave a small smile. Someone has to make sure this ship survives. I can't trust luck to do it. You carry too much responsibility, she said. I choose to, he replied simply. The queen studied him for a long moment. She realized that humans were not like her people. They did not live to follow tradition or claim power. They lived to survive, to create, to protect. This one human had risked his life for her without expectation of reward. It was remarkable. Days later, something unexpected happened. While checking the life support systems, Daniel noticed Irene the bio readings of the corridors of the Celestial Crown hummed with activity. Repairs had been completed, and the crew moved efficiently, preparing for the journey back to the heart of the Seraph Dominion. Yet for Queen Seraphira, the weight she carried was heavier than any weapon or battle scar. Inside her private chambers, she sat quietly, her golden eyes reflecting the soft glow of the stars outside. The life growing within her stirred faintly, reminding her that she carried something extraordinary, a union no one in her empire could have imagined. Her thoughts kept returning to Daniel. He had become more than a human engineer. He was her partner in survival, her anchor in the storm of the galaxy, and now, the father of a life that could reshape the Dominion itself. The queen had never been so conflicted. Her council would see her pregnancy as a threat. Many would call it a betrayal, claiming that she had allowed a human, a creature considered minor and insignificant, to shape the future of her people. Yet she felt no shame, only joy and a fierce determination to protect this new life. Daniel entered quietly, carrying a small toolkit. He paused when he saw her deep in thought. "You're thinking too much," he said softly. She looked at him, a smile playing on her lips. "Thinking is what queens do, Daniel." He shook his head. "No, queens protect. And you are protecting something very special." She studied him. "Yes, something special indeed. Something no one can take from us." "Not yet," Daniel nodded, understanding. "Then we'll keep it safe. Together." Word of the queen's unusual behavior had begun to spread among the crew. They noticed her moments of quiet reflection, the subtle way she smiled at Daniel and the occasional secretive gestures. Whispers began, curiosity, surprise, and awe mingling together. Yet no one dared question the queen directly. Finally, the day came when Seraphira decided she could no longer hide her truth. They had reached a secure system within her empire. Her fleet was strong again and her enemies were at bay. She called a council meeting, summoning her advisors and generals. Daniel stood at the edge of the room, quietly observing. Though not a member of the council, he remained near, ready to support her. The council hall was grand, filled with high-ranking officials and leaders. Holographic maps of star systems floated above the floor, showing fleets, planets, and trade routes. The room buzzed with quiet conversation, but silence fell when the queen entered. She moved with the grace of authority, yet there was something new in her demeanor, calm, confident, and resolute. Her gaze swept over the council and she raised a hand. "Silence," she commanded. All eyes turned toward her. Even the most skeptical generals knew better than to speak over their queen. Seraphira began, her voice steady and clear. "I have called this council to inform you of a truth that cannot be ignored." The council members exchanged confused glances. Some whispered nervously. "Truth?" one advisor asked cautiously. "Your Majesty?" The queen's golden eyes fixed on them. "Yes. A truth that changes not only my life but the future of the Seraph Dominion." She paused for a moment, letting the tension build. Daniel stood quietly, watching her. She drew strength from his calm presence and the certainty that he was by her side. "I carry life within me," she declared. The words echoed through the hall. "A life born of courage, loyalty, and an extraordinary bond between two worlds." Murmurs erupted among the council. Shock, disbelief, and whispers of fear filled the room. What do you mean?" one general asked, his voice trembling. Seraphira raised her hand, silencing them. "I am carrying a child of human and seraph." The hall fell silent. The council members stared, unable to process what they had just heard. Many had believed humans to be insignificant, incapable of shaping the future of the galaxy. And yet the queen herself had confirmed it. Some of the more conservative members of the council looked pale, whispering to each other in disbelief. Others looked fascinated, realizing the implications. A child born of human and seraph blood could unite two species, creating strength and resilience unlike anything the Dominion had seen before. Seraphira's gaze did not waver. "This child is not a threat. It is a gift, a symbol of courage, unity, and life beyond fear. The human who stands with me has proven that strength comes not only from warriors or weapons, but from loyalty, knowledge, and heart. All eyes turned to Daniel, who stood quietly at her side. His calm presence and quiet dignity spoke louder than any words. He did not bow, nor did he kneel, but his eyes met theirs steadily, showing courage, humility, and unwavering support. One of the council members, an older general, stepped forward cautiously. "Your Majesty, this is unprecedented, a human, and you carry its child? This could disrupt the traditions of our people." Seraphira's voice rang with authority. "Disrupt tradition, perhaps, but it will also strengthen it. This child will not weaken the dominion. It will carry the legacy of bravery, of two species united in survival and trust. Those who oppose it will see their short-sightedness in time." Daniel stepped closer, his voice calm and measured. "I do not seek power. I am here to protect life. The Queen and I are united in this, and together we will ensure this child grows to be strong and respected." The council members looked at him in shock. Humans were rarely this bold, and yet this one had saved their queen, fought beside them, and now spoke with a quiet authority that demanded respect. The tension in the room slowly shifted. Some council members still whispered in disbelief, but others began to nod. They realized that this child could indeed represent hope, courage, and a new future. The Queen's calm strength, combined with Daniel's loyalty, made it clear that they were not to be underestimated. Seraphira's voice carried through the hall again. "This child is a promise that life can endure beyond war, beyond fear, and beyond the limits of tradition. I declare openly that the human at my side is the father, and I will raise this child with him as my partner. Those who cannot accept this will have no place in my empire." A stunned silence followed. The boldness of her declaration left no room for argument. Some bowed their heads in acceptance, others in awe. None dared challenge her openly. Daniel reached out, gently placing his hand on the Queen's. Their touch was a quiet promise, a connection beyond words. Seraphira smiled, her golden eyes shining with pride and joy. For the first time she felt completely unafraid of the council, of enemies, or of what the galaxy might say. "This is our future," she whispered, almost to herself, "and we will face it together." The council began to leave, some in shock, some with newfound respect. The Queen had made her bold declaration, and the galaxy would soon hear of it. That night, as the ship drifted through calm space, Seraphira and Daniel stood together at the viewport. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a vast expanse of possibilities. "You were right," she said softly. "I have never felt such joy before. Not in battle, not in rule. This is different." Daniel smiled faintly. "Life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes the impossible becomes the most important thing we ever face." She turned to him, her golden eyes shining. "And you became part of that. You risked everything, and now you are part of something greater than any battle we have ever fought." He took her hand in his. "I will always stand by you. Always." Seraphira's heart swelled. She realized that this was more than a declaration. It was a new beginning. The Queen and the human, once strangers from two different worlds, were now united by trust, courage, and life itself. And somewhere in the galaxy, the stars seemed to shine brighter, as if celebrating the union of two hearts and the promise of a new future. The future was uncertain and danger still lingered. Yet the Queen and the human had shown the galaxy that courage, loyalty, and love could overcome fear, tradition, and expectation. Their story would ripple across the stars, and the child they now carried would symbolize something greater than either of them: hope, unity, and the power of life itself. Together, they had survived war, defied expectation, and now they embraced a future full of possibilities. The Queen's declaration was not only a statement of truth, it was a statement of courage, joy, and the beginning of a legacy that would echo across the galaxy. The days after the Queen's declaration were filled with cautious optimism. The council had accepted her announcement, though not without murmurs and doubts. Some officers still looked uneasy, while others watched Daniel with curiosity and respect. Yet for Queen Seraphira, nothing mattered more than the life she carried and the human who had proven himself worthy of trust and loyalty. She walked through the corridors of the celestial crown, feeling a lightness she had not known in centuries. The ship hummed with steady energy, repairs complete, and the crew moving with quiet efficiency. Daniel was always nearby, checking systems, offering guidance, and ensuring that the Queen and her secret remained safe. One evening, as they observed the stars together from the viewport, Seraphira spoke softly. "Daniel, can you imagine what the galaxy will say when they truly know?" He turned to her, his calm gaze steady. "They will learn just as we have. That strength is not only in fleets and weapons, but in trust, courage, and life itself. And that one human can make a difference." She smiled faintly. "You make it sound simple." "Simple, yes," he said, "but not easy. Life rarely is. That's why it matters." She studied him, her heart swelling with a combination of admiration and something deeper, a bond that